Imrik of Caledor is famous for three things: having a very difficult start, fighting a series of very difficult dragon battles, and then being an unstoppable doom stack, making everyone pay for giving him such a hard time to begin with. We're going to cover most of Imrik in his detailed upcoming mastery guide and the perfect 20 turns guide, but for now we are going to focus on the dragon battles themselves and how to acquire all of Imrik's dragons in any order using a basic army comfortably by about turn 80 on legendary using no cheats, mods or exploits. Welcome to Elven Plot Armor, and this is the definitive guide on Imrik's dragons and how to catch them with a terrible army. Mathematically, it's possible to obtain all 5 dragons by turn 71, and I've done it in 73, but for reasons I'll explain, it's a bit more reasonable and arguably more sensible to aim between turn 80 and 90. So let me just quickly explain the dragon encounters. Starting turn 11, a quest marker will appear near Imrik requiring him or any other lord to stand on it and interact with the dragon. Upon standing on it, a 15 turn counter will start dictating when the next dragon encounter will happen, but you currently have to interact with this one, and of the options you should always choose to challenge the dragon, which places the dragon battle in your quest log to be accessed anytime you desire. There are 5 dragons that Imrik might encounter, and it's all at random. If you choose not to challenge the dragon and opt for one of the other options, you will possibly see this dragon again, but the idea is to challenge the dragons and therefore bring them into your quest log so you can gain access to them in your army quicker. The only other option you should ever choose in a dragon encounter is to trade 2000 gold for 70 influence. And for the very first dragon encounter, this can actually be a very good decision because Imrik gets access to lots of nobles quite early, meaning you can acquire frugal or some other trait that will really help your campaign. But after you've got this initial injection of influence, I highly recommend challenging the dragons each time they appear so you acquire a new quest battle every 15 turns. And then in the late game, once you've acquired all 5 dragons, further challenges will just spawn a random dragon battle and army, at which point in your campaign, trading 70 influence for only 2000 gold is actually a really good deal. Now before we jump in, I want to quickly stress that there is no rush to do these dragon battles, and you can have 2 or even all 5 of them in your quest log, and that's fine, because it's not about getting them quickly, it's about acquiring them safely, because Imrik is so broke, he can't afford multiple armies, meaning that Imrik will probably have to fight within the next few turns, so don't destroy his army doing a dragon battle and then get overrun by a campaign battle. Now the army we'll be using will be a basic army of units you can hire anywhere, and this is going to be 11 archers, hotkeeyed into 3 groups, 2 spears on each flank, with at least 1 noble up front. Actually, I'd even recommend having a second noble in this army for maximum replenishment. Just chock them full of melee defense and armor so they can hold that front line, and they will really assist you. Just make sure you keep your nobles on foot and only use the chariot or eagle mount if you're fighting artillery heavy armies, which you're really unlikely to face in Imrik's campaign. I'm going to assume Imrik is level 14 and on his star dragon, and your mage must be at least level 7 and on a horse with max burning head and kindle flame. I'd actually recommend until she's level 22, when you can put her on a sun dragon with more winds of magic and advanced spells. If you're new to Imrik, Michaela is the actual star of his campaign, so unless you're playing on legendary, always quick load if she dies, as she is a singular army killer at level 22, at which point Imrik will also have access to Dragon Pact, but more important, he will have Lord of Dragons. Working your way to this debuff will give Imrik more melee defense to hold the line, but this debuff is very key in holding legendary dragons in place while your archers tread them down. Imrik also gets additional traits from beating dragons, but honestly you don't even need them because this is so good. The order of dragons is best done, obviously, with the easiest first, allowing you to acquire them into your army in order to make the later battles easier. The first 2 dragons you should attempt should be the Black Dragon or the Forest Dragon. Each can be defeated with minimal risk of casualties. More difficult with more risk is the Frost Dragon and Star Dragon, with the most risky being the Sun Dragon, which you should attempt last. And then after that you can attempt the Armour of Caledor subquest, which will do much better with dragons to reverse the treacherous artillery. Starting with our first preferred dragon is the Black Dragon Shackolot the Calamity, and this isn't just the easiest battle, it also gives us the greatest trait, meaning Imrik's whole army will get +1 to dragon breaths for every dragon in it, so very powerful. All of these battles have scripted reinforcements, so never corner camp, and for this and most battles we want to be up the front on the front line and marching straight towards the vampires when it begins. Start dumping down magic and dragonfire onto the helpless vampires, then set up the front row of spears to intercept the frontal charge and keep your back spears ready to intercept any flanks. Use your hotkeyed group of archers to focus down the larger threats until they die, and as for the smaller infantry, just whittle them down to an inch of their life and they'll crumble away without too much trouble, and once you kill their lord, the fight should be over. Well, at least the first part. Now Shackolot will be coming right towards you, so remember with each archer, hold, alt and control to pivot them towards the dragon itself. As the dragon gets close, you want to charge Imrik in and use the Lord of Dragons ability as well as any other buffs or debuffs he has. Imrik will be able to hang with the dragon while your archers focus it down. Once the dragon drops, select your individual archer units and hold alt control to spin them around, or simply draw a new line with right click to set them up facing the left flank because you have manticores and all sorts of nasty things flying in. Hopefully you watched my formations video and know that you should always have skirmish mode off and guard mode on, so if one of these manticores dives in, it isn't going to scatter your formation, so just focus them down and meet them with any spearmen. Once you've swatted them away, on the opposite flank the reinforcements should be a Hydra and some Medusa, and just quite simply focus down the first couple and you should see them break and the first dragon is yours. Back on the campaign map you can raise him immediately or you can keep him in reserve as an emergency ROR, but just remember it's a 10 turn cooldown in case you do kill him or decide to disband him. The second dragon, and another great first choice, is the Forest Dragon Bruwor. Once again deploy up on the line, but this time Bruwor will be beelining straight for you, and this is great. Get Imrik in there, Lord of Dragons on him, and then dive into combat to pin him in place while your archers shoot him down, and he should drop. Get to work with some dragon breaths and burning heads, and make sure you bring your spearmen up to brace against the tree folk, allowing your archers to focus down the threats. Soon enough this first army will break, but you have reinforcements coming in to your left flank, so make sure you bring your spearmen up towards the end of the forest to intercept any incoming charges. Scour the area with dragon fire and fire spells, and you should soon enough begin to rout them, and being sure to shatter enemy units, and soon the battle will be won, and Bruwor, Protector of Life, will be yours. I'll also quickly mention that upon defeating each dragon, you also get a unique piece of equipment, and these are very good items. Because Imrik tends to have his own gear, you'll find yourself dropping these onto Michaela, but she makes excellent use of these. Just don't forget to equip them. The next dragon, and a step up in difficulty and risk, is Lamoureux the Frozen Breath, which is a moon dragon which has frozen breath. Anyway, this fight will test you with several large threats, so make sure you set up using the rocky formation to your right to cover your right flank, allowing you to focus more on the center and your left flank with your spearmen and heroes. Take a bit more time to ensure that your range units are deployed a little bit further apart because there are a lot of flying threats here, and again make sure that skirmish mode is off and guard mode is on. As the battle begins, feel free to send your dragons up ahead and do a bit of fire and breath damage to see if you can score some lucky breath attacks, because now you have 4 breath attacks per battle, so give it a go. More importantly though, Michaela can overcast Fireball as well as use overcast Piercing Bolts of Burning to really deal some damage to these fewer but stronger entities. And once again, focus down these enemies so they don't just break but shatter. If you have the money and opportunity before this to replace your 4 spearmen with silver and guard, this will make a big difference in the ease of this battle and the ones that follow. Try to focus down the other flyers before the moon dragon comes in, but when she does, you know the drill. Imrik's diving in and casting Lord of Dragons. Allow Imrik to duel the dragon while your archers finish it off, and then go back to focusing on their other targets to make this part of the army rout. In between breath attacks, don't forget to dive your dragons in for a nasty rear charge and try to get that juicy terror rout to break them. And when they do, get ready. You have 2 armies approaching on each flank, both containing mammoths, so make sure you first face your archers to the right hand side. If your archers have become displaced and step on top of each other, it's worth taking the time to reset them up and stretch them up in their own space. This way they won't obstruct each other, and more importantly, the mammoths have to go a little bit further before they completely neuter your archers. But keep an eye on the other flank and send Imrik over as soon as they start to get close, because if you let both groups of mammoths get to your lines, they will absolutely ruin your army and cause you all forms of casualties. So try to make sure Imrik occupies the other while your army finishes off the first group. Dragon Pact and Piercing Bolts of Burning are great to whittle down their health, and soon enough they will break and Lamoureux will be yours. The next dragon is Ymwrath the Eternal, a giant star dragon, and he's actually about on par in difficulty as the moon dragon we just defeated, which might surprise you, but it gets even easier if you've already got 2 or 3 dragons in your ranks. Simply deploy on the front line, and keep in mind this rock formation here will be able to spread them out, but be careful that you don't get flanked on your left. As the battle begins, send your dragons ahead to be able to cast fire spells and breath attacks to soften up the enemy. As they get close, be sure to tie them up with your spears and heroes, focusing down the large Carnosaur and Stegodon first, while your spears hold the enemy in place to allow maximum breath attack damage. Try to focus enemies down until they shatter, and if you already own many dragons, it's actually not the worst idea to send one of your dragons away to press them and chase them off the map. But don't celebrate prematurely because you have a Dreadsaurian coming on your right flank. And honestly, you're just going to handle this like you would any other dragon. Cast Lord of Dragons and pin him in place with Imrik whilst all of your archers do the hard work, and you have won and grant yourself Ymwrath the Eternal. Finally, we come to the last and not necessarily most difficult dragon, but definitely the one that poses the most risk of damaging our army and therefore impeding our campaign. Probably my personal favourite dragon in the entire game, Gordinar, Champion of the Flame. And this battle really poses some threats to your army because everything is undead and there's a lot of mobile units that can get amongst your ranks and really shred your army if you let anything through. As always, I've done this with the basic army, but more dragons will of course make this much easier. Deploy on the right hand side and immediately march your army forward, then pivot your army, repositioning them to face the center of the map. This also works on the left hand side, but the important thing is to face the center, and then send your dragons and mage out for the obligatory burning head and fire attacks. Back at your army, do your very best to focus down the flying units, even if they land. Try to pin them in place with spears and then focus them down with your archers till they're completely dead. Same with the large entities, try to completely destroy these with your archers by focus firing. Soon enough, Gordinar will engage directly with you. Follow the usual plan of engaging him with Imrik, cast Lord of Dragons, and fire every arrow you have at him until he falls. Just make sure you pay attention on protecting your troops as well as completely focusing down and eliminating threats before you get surrounded by too many, and this battle can generally be done without too many casualties. This battle certainly has the biggest chance of inflicting injury on you. And there you have it, you now have all 5 dragons, but you have one thing remaining, and that is the Armour of Caledor. A battle made much easier when you have mobile, powerful creatures, which will help you close the massive distance. And on this large map, you will start facing a Dark Elf army. Simply form up in front of them in the traditional formation and send your dragons forward, and you'll probably waste this army before it ever gets close. Pivot slightly to the left. The vampire counts will actually try to overrun you, so make sure you use your spearmen to pin them in place and shred them with your arrows and a bit of dragonfire. But while this is happening, feel free to send Michaela up ahead to start dishing some serious fire damage on the enemy. Overcasting piercing bolts of burning will really help hammer those artillery pieces, but just be careful of the gunfire. Once the vampire count leader falls, you are free to direct all of your dragons to the vampire coast in the corner, and as you can imagine, this fight is pretty much over. Completing this battle completes every quest battle that Imrik of Caledor has, and you can now raise these dragons at any point in time from any lord, but just keep in mind the 10 turn cooldown in the event they are either killed or disbanded. But feel free to throw all 5 in your army and continue to terrorize the Darklands and make your way through the Badlands. Enjoy the fruits of your labor, it's an absolute blast, and this is my favorite campaign for a reason. And that brings us to the end of this guide. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please consider giving a like or subscribe, or even sharing with someone who might find it useful. Any questions, additions, put them in the comments, I will answer. And this is Elven Plot Armor. Cheers for watching, see you next time.